Hey, it's Robert Gowan. We're sitting here at Lion Creek Bus Brewing in Fayetteville, Georgia. I'm joined by the sidekick on this episode, Kyle Neal.
How are you guys doing?
And then also two guys from Brigands, RJ and Dylan, who are going to join us on a really cool topic. So thank you guys for jumping in, because I think today, more than ever, we're finding more and more veterans who started to get into leading more of an intentional life. And for me, what I've seen is guys that started getting into yoga, into breathing, into slowing this hectic life that they had gone where, you know, that switch is on all the time and they're in that fight or flight. And now they're starting to slow down and realize that what's most important is to get their life back in cycle and start living something that's more intentional, purpose-driven, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know if you guys started seeing some of the same things out there in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I can speak from a personal aspect. I don't really know where the switch was. I don't know if I think it's maybe as I'm getting older a little bit, and as I've gotten into the fire service, and I think I've kind of lived my life almost. I don't know if it's the way I was raised or what, but almost as if there's like checkpoints, and it's like, hey, I went into the Army. Cool. I made it to Ranger Regiment. Awesome. I closed that chapter, and now I'm a career fireman. And it's like, for whatever reason, when I became a fireman, I thought, all right, I can kind of relax here and I can settle into this job, and I've got the pension now, and I can really just delve into this lifestyle. And just like anything else, things become normal, and you look to I don't know, maybe you look to progress in other ways and stuff like that. And I think it's kind of a never ending like search for new knowledge, for new endeavors. And, what do you always say? Choose your own adventure, something like that. I love when RJ always says that. But more recently, I've really, whether it's Brigands Co. or recovery aspects, like you were talking about yoga and breathing and stuff like that, those things have really started to kind of rise to the surface as far as like personally finding my own center. Because you can, especially now with all of these outside things, whether it's social media or, anything else crazy in the world, it's really easy to be scatterbrained. It's really easy to get distracted and have these 1,000 things. And then I find myself like really semi-passionate about a lot of things. And for me, that's not the best way to be. I like to have my pillars that I can always kind of go back to, which is Brigands Co., which is the fire service, which is my tribe, like we spoke to earlier, things like that. So I think that living with more intention is something I think I've kind of been a little bit more aware of in recent years, whether I've really put it that way in my head or not. But again, like you said, I think it comes from a lot of us being goal-oriented people. You know what I mean? I think that's been a really big thing. I don't know that I've ever thought of it like, oh, this purpose-driven, this way of intention. I think I've just kind of naturally found myself falling back into that groove for sure.
Yeah, I think as far as purpose-driven, if you're making decisions about what you're doing next, you're living an intentional life. And I think that people fall into the trap of, well, you started down this glide path, here's your next step, and they're being told where they're headed and what the direction that is best for them. So the people that don't decide, that's a decision too. So I see a lot more guys getting out and going, I am passionate about this, I'm going to go check this out. And whether it's through college, through a work experience, being part of a company, because eventually they know they want to start a company doing this. I see a lot more guys getting into that space now when they get out. And I think social media has helped out. They listen to podcasts like you were saying earlier when you first got out. That helped you, and that helped you find your path and your way. And, it didn't dictate where you were headed. It just dictated, hey, you're not alone, and this is some things you can do about that. And then you moved on from there. But I know there's just all these veteran entrepreneurs, and I think we're seeing a lot more of that. Guys some people are even joining the military for the experience so that they can get out and start doing, just because they know they're not mature enough to go to college, and wow, this looks like an amazing adventure. And yeah, I don't have to know what I'm doing right now. That looks great. I'm going to go check it out. and then maybe try college, maybe start my own company. I don't know. Let's go find out. So
Yeah, I mean, the great thing for me personally about Brigands Co. has been relationships like this that, if it wasn't for Brigands Co., I wouldn't have met a percentage of the people that we've met and been able to talk to and stuff like that. So that is just hearing other people's experiences. I'm sure you guys get plenty of it on the podcast, is hearing these people from different walks of life that I might not have ever heard of or might not have ever seen myself being one of those people. I mean, like your sign over here that before I signed that, I'm looking at all the other names on here. And, a part of it is imposter syndrome. I've got a lot of that. I'll self-admittedly I don't feel very deserving of a lot because it's just, I'm average, man. I don't do anything anybody else hasn't done before, and that's one way to look at it. But it's also like, hey, if these people have done these things, then why not RJ? Why not me? Why not my brother? Why not Brigands Co.? Why not us, our tribe, our community? Those are things that, and then now feeling that fire and kind of thinking about that is like, all right, well, I'm not going to just wake up on my day off tomorrow and go to the coffee shop and sit around and look for the quick pleasure. It's like, all right, what am I doing with my day off? What passion am I chasing? How do I become, like these other people I look up to, because they all started in the same position I did. You know what I mean? They didn't, get out of the Army as these incredible entrepreneurs. I see people like Spencer Lewis up there, and, I've subscribed to some of his workout stuff, and it's like, man, where did that guy start out? Like, and that's just an example. All of these other entrepreneurs that are just crushing it, and, they're waking up with goals on their days off, and, that's something I've really tried to be more cognizant of in recent years, for sure.
You used a word, wellness, and brought up, yoga and different things to, heal and reflect, and all of that's very important. And I've never heard so much until recently. And I think 5 years ago, even my reserve pararescue squadron received money to start a POTIF team, a preservation of force and family. And a lot of that has to do with wellness. So, hey, how do we keep these guys from getting injured and do preventative things for them in their career as they go through this? If somebody gets injured, how do we quickly get them back in the saddle, back on track, stuff like that. So it's been a pretty amazing evolution. And recently. Mm-hmm. So, you hear about these. I just saw a podcast the other day, and it was Ryan the Birdman, 7X Project. Like, oh my God, what a crazy adventure. And I mentioned Quiz earlier on a previous section, as far as the Transcend Foundation. There's just a lot of goodness going on, and people trying to figure out, hey, how do we help our community? And that's a whole different kind of intention, mm-hmm. right? That's prevention, longevity, healing, getting to baseline, getting back to optimization, that people that age don't have that expectation until they hear those words like, no, dude, like we can get you back to baseline and we can optimize you, like make you feel like that good again. Or, that thing that you felt in your 20s and 30s, like we can get that back for you. Like that's not mission impossible. Let's do it. So
sometimes people don't understand what that kind of means. But if you think about, if I said, Kyle, I want you to do something with as much intention as what you apply to, whatever, hitting the target, whatever the case may be. But I want you to do that in your personal journey. And I want you to do that with your family. I want you to do that with your kids. I want you to do that,
Then you got to bring those external factors in there because they're all going to go on that with you, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to be intentional when you're around them that they are the most important thing. And then whenever you're going and doing, that's the most important thing. That's the way I see like living with intention is if it's a loving time, you're showing love. If it's a acting time, you're acting. If it's, a doing time, you're doing. But at that point, you're intentionally doing something that is moving you forward as a person, as a husband, as a father, as a veteran, as an entrepreneur, whatever it is. That is living with intention to me. Like, it's intentional. It's on purpose.
Yeah, I think that kind
Living in
of,
the present.
it's like what I was kind of circling around a little bit, I think, with all the distractions and, we're having family time, but I'm on my phone and, I'm taking this phone call and I'm doing all that. And it's like, how intentional is that really? You know what I mean? And in 2023, it's never been easier to be distracted and pulled. And, like I know, when RJ is home, he's home. You know what I mean? When he's gone, he's in that, and he's intentionally living this way. And then same thing with me and my brother at the fire department. When we're there, we're there. And when the tones drop and we're going code 3 to someone, that's where you're at. You're not anywhere else, and that translates directly to your personal life. When you're with your wife, the kids, the girlfriend, whatever, like that's who you're with. Put everything aside. Draft your Instagram posts and, put them on a timer. Don't worry about it. Post and ghost and spend time with the people that deserve your time.
We went through a cultural change in a company, and I mentioned this on episodes, but I'll bring it up because I think it's also relevant, is that the company decided that we wanted greater collaboration. We wanted a culture of teamwork and, all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to make sure that people understood that they needed to be intentional in all the work that they're doing, because we're doing important work for the people that we serve. So they came up with a theme that was out there called Be Here Now. And so when you're sitting there in a meeting place and people whipped out their laptop as if they're going to do some work while they're at the conference table, it's like, no, dude, shut the laptop down.
Yes.
Be here now, right? And everybody knew what that meant. Like, take out the phone, whip it out on the table. First thing, might get that text and everything. Now turn it off, put the phone away. We're going to be here right now.
Yeah, and it's easier said than done. I mean, it's easy to sit here and be and act like I don't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, God, I'm the first one to admit, like, hey, sorry, boys. It's I know I'm at the dinner table at the firehouse, but let me just get back to this Brigands email real quick. We got some whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not something you achieve. It's something you have to consistently remind yourself of. And again, you have to be intentional about that too. You know what I mean? So it's easy to sit here and preach and, when I go on the podcast, I'm going to talk about how good I am at this. And I'm not, but it's a constant thing. And all you can do is really be cognizant of it and understand the true value of that. And, there's a strong argument that, I hear the back and forth on being a multitasker and doing everything a little bit, or being able to drop everything and focus in and give your heart and soul into one thing. And I think that's interesting. I prefer the latter, where I can kind of block some other things off, especially when it comes to family time. Even me, Connor, and RJ with Brigands Co., we do make it a point to say, hey, leave the laptops. Let's go grab some breakfast. This is not a business meeting. This is a friends getting together meeting, because that's how we started. We didn't start as business partners. We were friends for 2.5, 3 years before we ever went into actual going into business together. So if we're not friends, we're not anything.
Yeah.
So we try, and even with ourselves, like, hey, let's just talk stories. Like, let's just laugh our asses off and drink too much coffee. Like, that's what today is about.
And then you wish somebody was standing there filming it and everything so you could have a reel on social media. No, I totally get
That's
it.
right.
But it's so funny, right? The world we live in. But we multitask. We live, if you're used to performing in high-performing teams or whatever, you get into this mindset that you have to constantly be thinking about the next step, and you want to be multitasking and those types of things. So it's really hard to get our brain to focus on one thing.
Yeah. We're driven by success is what a lot of us, whether coming from the special operations community or what, like, you are always reaching that next, like, oh, we did it. All right, here's that other checkpoint. All right,
now what's around the curve?
Exactly, and it is really hard.
Ridge line?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
And it is really hard to pull yourself from that and be like, you know what, that doesn't matter. Maybe personal relationships are the only thing that really matters for this.
Right now.
Exactly.
Eating popcorn, watching the movie, doing whatever, riding the bikes with your kids, whatever the case may be. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they're young. I can tell you that the words that we're talking about right now would not have probably resonated with me at 23 years old. I wouldn't have understood it.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of wisdom, which means you failed a lot, in order to realize that was important.
I think part of being here right now is knowing you're going to make mistakes. And the guys that win, or the guys that live that intentional life, are the guys that recognize those mistakes earlier and admit them every single time. Like, it's funny because you were going down the road, and that's exactly what I thought, because, we're saying, yeah, we do all this stuff. I would say we try to do all this stuff. Like, we do our best, and always do your best. You're responsible for everything you do and don't do, like I've said before. So do your best. Know that you're going to make mistakes. As soon as you realize that, admit them to the team and, correct them and go from there. So I think that's a big part of living an intentional life too. Just knowing you're not going to be perfect, for God's sake. You're human. Of course you're going to make mistakes. How big they are, how small they are, just recognize them early and often and go from there.
That was a hard life for me to learn. You were talking about growing up in a military family. I did the same thing, and there was a demand there's a demand and a level that's set and everything. And it took me into my 40s before I had to let that demon go and realize that I can't keep climbing and doing something to get better because I'm supposed to be the best, because along that way I was forgetting the family, I was forgetting the friends, I was doing all those types of things that wasn't important. I was living an intentful life at that point, a life with intention, but it was a wrong focus. So I think we can get caught up in that as well, right? We got to be very much aware of our surroundings. We talk about always keeping your head on a 360, the whole bit. You've got to be very much aware of your surroundings, and are you focusing your intention in the right way that's going to benefit not only yourself in a healthy environment, but the people who are in your close circle that mean the most to you, care about you. Don't forget about them along this path as well.
Yeah, no one can answer that but you. What matters most, and a lot of times it's not the job. If your home life is in shambles, then does it matter that you passed that board or you got that rank or whatever? If you go home to an empty house or whatever, then you might need to reevaluate what your intent is and where you're placing all that energy.
Or even worse, why are you at the soccer game if you're on your email the entire time?
Why even be there?
Because your kid looks at you from out in the field just like you look at them from on the field. So they're like, well, he's on his cell phone.
Again.
Yeah.